What if everything you rely on today, every piece of technology, every convenience, every spark of human progress simply didn't exist? Picture waking up to a world without clocks to tell time, wheels to move goods, or even the humble nail holding your home together. It's almost impossible to fathom, isn't it? Yet thousands of years ago, that was reality. And then something extraordinary happened. Ancient innovators looked at the world around them and asked, what if? From that simple question sprang inventions so revolutionary. They didn't just change their era, they built the very framework of our modern lives. These weren't just tools or gadgets. They were leaps of imagination that defied the limits of their time. Think about the last time you used a compass, read a book, or even enjoyed a hot meal cooked to perfection. Each of these everyday moments traces back to a breakthrough so profound, it echoes across centuries. The ancient world was a hotbed of genius, where civilizations from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica solved problems we still grapple with today. They harnessed the stars to navigate vast oceans, engineered structures that stand untouched by time, and even created the first analog computers centuries before electricity. These weren't just clever ideas, they were the birth of human ingenuity, the moment we stopped accepting the world as it was and started shaping it into what it could be. This journey isn't just about marveling at the past, it's about rediscovering the threads that connect us to it. Every time you check the time, write a note, or cross a bridge, you're touching the legacy of these ancient visionaries. So let's step back into their world, where fire and stone gave way to precision and possibility. Together, we'll uncover 29 innovations so groundbreaking, they didn't just change history, they created it. By the end, you'll see the fingerprints of these forgotten geniuses everywhere, and you'll never look at the modern world the same way again. The past isn't just behind us, it's the foundation beneath our feet, and it's time to meet the builders. Imagine a world where every journey was a struggle, where moving anything heavier than you could carry meant dragging it painfully across the ground. That was reality until one of humanity's most understated yet transformative inventions emerged, the wheel. Born in Mesopotamia around 3500 BCE, this circular marvel didn't just make life easier, it set civilization rolling forward at an unprecedented pace. At first, it might have seemed like a simple solution, placing a round object beneath a load to reduce friction. But this was no small leap. Before the wheel, people relied on sledges or sheer brute force, limiting how far and fast goods could travel. Suddenly, with smooth rotation, heavy stones for temples, crops for trade, and even wounded warriors could move with astonishing efficiency. What's truly fascinating is how the wheel evolved from a solid wooden disc to something far more sophisticated. Early versions were clunky, carved from single slabs of timber. Then came the game-changing innovation, spokes. By hollowing out the center, ancient engineers made wheels lighter and stronger, perfect for the swift chariots that would dominate battlefields from Egypt to China. These spoked wheels weren't just about speed, they reshaped warfare, enabling empires to expand and cultures to collide. But the wheel's genius didn't stop there. It became the heartbeat of machinery, from water wheels grinding grain to the intricate gears inside clocks centuries later. Think about the ripple effect. Without the wheel, there would be no carts to build the pyramids, no spinning potter's wheels to craft ceramics, no pulleys to lift medieval cathedral stones. Even today, every car, bicycle, and conveyor belt owes its existence to this ancient breakthrough. But here's what's most remarkable. The wheel wasn't just a tool, it was a mindset. It taught humanity that obstacles could be overcome not by brute force, but by reimagining motion itself. rolling forward became more than physics. It became a metaphor for progress. And that's why, even after 5,000 years, we're still riding on the ingenuity of those early Mesopotamian thinkers. Their invention didn't just change how we move, it changed how we dream. Now picture a world where every thought worth preserving had to be carved into stone or pressed into clay tablets, heavy, fragile, and nearly impossible to transport. That was the reality before a Chinese court official named Kai Lun revolutionized how humanity records its ideas. Around the year 105 CE, he perfected a method using mulberry bark, hemp, and old fishing nets to create something astonishingly simple yet earth-shaking: paper. This wasn't just a new material, it was a key that unlocked the future of knowledge itself. Before paper, writing was a luxury reserved for the powerful. Imagine hauling clay tablets across empires or etching laws onto towering stone pillars. Each word demanded backbreaking labor, but Kai Lun's invention changed everything. Lightweight, flexible, and surprisingly durable, paper made it possible to capture thoughts quickly and share them widely. Suddenly, poems could travel in pockets, legal codes could be copied for distant cities, and scholars could fill libraries without needing palaces to store them. The impact was immediate. Within centuries, paper mills sprang up along the Silk Road, carrying this innovation from China to Baghdad and eventually to Europe, where it would fuel the Renaissance. What's often overlooked is how paper transformed more than just writing. It reshaped human cognition. With scrolls and later bound books, ideas could be organized, referenced, and built upon in ways stone tablets never allowed. Think of the scientific revolutions, the philosophical debates, even the birth of modern finance, all relying on the ability to record, revise, and distribute complex thoughts. Paper became the silent partner in every major intellectual leap, from Da Vinci's sketches to the spread of democratic constitutions. And here's the beautiful paradox: while we live in a digital age, paper's legacy endures. The very word bureaucracy traces back to the French for office cloth, a nod to paper's role in governance. Even today, there's something irreplaceable about the feel of a book or the sketch of an idea on a napkin, an echo of that ancient breakthrough. Kai Lun couldn't have known his humble sheets would outlast empires, but that's the magic of paper. It didn't just hold ink, it held the collective memory of civilization, one lightweight page at a time. Try counting without zero, not just counting objects, that's easy enough, but measuring the emptiness between stars, calculating the infinitesimal moments between heartbeats, or even balancing your bank account. It would be like trying to paint without the color black, or build a house without the concept of empty space. That was the world's reality until ancient Indian mathematicians did something radical. They dared to give nothingness a number. Around the 5th century, in the bustling intellectual hubs of the Gupta Empire, scholars didn't just use zero as a placeholder, they elevated it to the status of a full-fledged numeral. This wasn't just a tweak to arithmetic, it was a revolution in how humanity understood the fabric of reality itself. Before zero, civilizations struggled with clunky counting systems. The Babylonians left gaps in their cuneiform numbers to indicate absence, while the Greeks, despite their geometric brilliance, feared the void so much they avoided zero entirely. Even the Romans, with their sprawling empire, had no symbol for nothing, just clumsy workarounds, but Indian thinkers like Brahmagupta saw the void differently. To them, zero wasn't terrifying, it was essential. Imagine their breakthrough by defining shunya, Sanskrit for emptiness, as a number with its own properties. They unlocked the door to negative numbers, algebra, and eventually calculus. Suddenly, mathematicians could express debts as easily as profits, plot curves that dipped below axes, and described the infinite with precision. The ripple effects were staggering. Zero became the silent engine behind astronomy, allowing precise predictions of eclipses and planetary movements. It traveled westward through Arab scholars who called it cipher, giving us the word cipher. By the medieval period, zero had reached Europe, though not without resistance. Some Christian scholars condemned it as a dangerous, pagan concept, but truth has a way of persisting. Without zero, there would be no Newtonian physics, no Einsteinian relativity, and certainly no binary code powering the device you're using right now. Every digital zero in today's computers traces its lineage back to those ancient Indian scrolls. Here's the profound irony: zero, the symbol of nothing, made everything possible. It's the ultimate paradox, an idea so abstract it reshaped the tangible world. From the spiraling equations of black holes to the algorithms curating your social feed, zero's fingerprints are everywhere. And that's the real genius of those early mathematicians. They didn't just invent a number, they taught humanity that emptiness could be the most powerful tool of all. Diving into the depths of the Aegean Sea in the year 1901, sponge divers stumbled upon something that would rewrite the history of technology: a corroded lump of bronze and wood, encrusted with centuries of marine growth. At first glance, it seemed like just another artifact from an ancient shipwreck, but when archaeologists painstakingly cleaned it, they uncovered a device so advanced, it defied everything we thought we knew about ancient Greek capabilities. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, a 2,000-year-old masterpiece of gears and precision engineering that could predict celestial events with astonishing accuracy. The brilliance of this device lies in its intricate clockwork. Imagine a handheld universe where dozens of interlocking bronze gears mimic the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. Turn the handle and dials would display upcoming eclipses, track the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games, and even account for the irregular orbit of the moon, a feat modern scientists didn't fully grasp until the 17th century. This wasn't just a tool, it was a miniature cosmos engineered with a level of sophistication that wouldn't be seen again until the mechanical clocks of medieval Europe. What's truly humbling is how this mechanism shatters the myth of linear progress. We often assume that ancient civilizations were primitive compared to our own, that innovation moved in a straight line from simple to complex. But the Antikythera Mechanism forces us to reconsider. Its existence suggests a lost world of technical knowledge, possibly inspired by thinkers like Archimedes or Hipparchus, whose works were later destroyed. The device's differential gears, a component once thought to have been invented in the 18th century, reveal a level of mechanical genius that simply vanished for over a millennium. Today, researchers continue to unravel its secrets using advanced imaging techniques. Each new discovery peels back another layer, revealing inscriptions that serve as an ancient user manual and hidden functions that may have even predicted planetary positions. The mechanism stands as a haunting reminder: brilliance isn't bound by era. It's a testament to human curiosity, a whisper from the past proving that the drive to understand the cosmos has always burned brightly, even when the knowledge flickered out, waiting to be rediscovered. Standing beneath the dome of Rome's Pantheon, it's hard not to feel a sense of awe, not just at its grandeur, but at its endurance. Built nearly 2,000 years ago, this architectural marvel still holds the title of the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome, defying time, weather, and even earthquakes. The secret lies in a recipe lost for centuries: Roman concrete. While modern concrete crumbles after 50 years, especially in seawater, structures like the Pantheon, Roman harbors, and aqueducts stand strong. The difference: a pinch of volcanic ash and a dash of ancient ingenuity. Roman engineers didn't just mix sand and lime, they added pozzolana, a fine volcanic ash from the slopes of Mount Vesuvius. When combined with seawater, this mixture triggered a chemical reaction that not only strengthened the concrete but allowed it to cure underwater, a feat modern science struggled to replicate until recently. The result was a material that grew more durable over time as minerals from seawater seeped into cracks and healed them like a self-repairing skeleton. Modern concrete, by contrast, relies on steel reinforcements that rust and weaken, leading to the crumbling bridges and sidewalks we see today. What's fascinating is how this ancient technology was rediscovered. For years, scientists assumed Roman concrete's longevity was a happy accident, but microscopic analysis revealed its genius. Tiny, plate-like crystals of aluminous tobamorite formed by the volcanic ash, creating a structure far more resilient than anything we produce now. Even more remarkable, this concrete was environmentally friendly, requiring lower temperatures to produce and absorbing carbon dioxide as it aged. The implications are staggering. Imagine constructing seawalls that strengthen with each wave, or buildings that endure millennia without maintenance. Today, researchers are racing to reverse engineer this ancient recipe, blending modern material science with 2,000-year-old wisdom. The Pantheon's dome isn't just a relic, it's a challenge, a reminder that progress isn't always linear, and that sometimes the future is buried in the past. Perhaps the real lesson of Roman concrete isn't just about durability, but humility. In our rush to innovate, we overlooked a solution that was hiding in plain sight, preserved in the very structures we admire. The next time you walk past a pothole or a crumbling overpass, remember, the ancients might have already handed us the blueprint for something better. All we had to do was look. In a Tang Dynasty alchemist's workshop, amid bubbling elixirs and whispered incantations, history took an explosive turn. These seekers of eternal life weren't mixing potions, they were stumbling upon a formula that would shatter the trajectory of human conflict: gunpowder. Combining saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal in just the right proportions, they hoped to unlock the secrets of immortality. Instead, they unleashed a force so potent it would redraw the map of power across continents. At first, this fire drug was celebrated for its dazzling pyrotechnics, lighting up imperial celebrations with bursts of color and sound. But it wasn't long before someone realized those same sparks could be harnessed for something far more transformative and devastating. The shift from celebration to destruction was swift. By the Song Dynasty, Chinese engineers were stuffing bamboo tubes with gunpowder to create the earliest flamethrowers and grenades. Then came the true game changer: metal barrels that could direct explosions with precision, giving birth to the first cannons. Suddenly, stone walls that had stood for centuries crumbled under bombardment, and cavalry charges met their match in handheld fire lances. Warfare would never be the same, but here's the twist: gunpowder didn't just change how battles were fought, it altered who could fight them. Armies no longer needed years of training to wield swords or bows. A farmer with a basic firearm could now stand against a knight in armor, leveling the battlefield in ways that toppled feudal systems and birthed new nations. Yet gunpowder's legacy extends far beyond warfare. Miners used it to blast through rock, accelerating the extraction of coal and metals that fueled the Industrial Revolution. Engineers harnessed its power to carve tunnels through mountains, connecting cities and continents. Even the Age of Exploration owes it a debt. Cannons protected ships that sailed uncharted waters, while fireworks signaled newfound lands. But this duality is precisely what makes gunpowder so fascinating. The same substance that celebrated peace could also wage war. the tool that built infrastructure could also destroy it. Modern historians often reflect on the irony. An invention born from the quest for life's prolongation became one of its greatest threats. Yet gunpowder also embodies humanity's relentless curiosity. Those alchemists weren't just mixing chemicals, they were probing the boundaries of possibility, even when the results defied their intentions. Today, as we grapple with the unintended consequences of artificial intelligence and genetic engineering, their story feels eerily familiar. Breakthroughs rarely unfold as planned, but they always propel us forward for better or worse. The echo of that 9th century explosion still reverberates, reminding us that discovery isn't just about what we create, but how we choose to wield it. Standing at the base of the Great Pyramid, it's not just the scale that takes your breath away, it's the precision. This 4,500-year-old structure doesn't just point north, it aligns with true north to within a fraction of a degree, a feat that would challenge modern engineers with laser tools and satellite data. The pyramid's sides run almost perfectly along the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west, with a margin of error so slight, it's less than the width of a human hand across its entire 230-meter base. How did a civilization without compasses or GPS achieve such accuracy? The answer lies somewhere between celestial genius and enduring mystery. One compelling theory points to the stars. Ancient Egyptians were master astronomers, tracking the movements of constellations with meticulous detail. They might have used the circumpolar stars, those that never set below the horizon, to find north. By observing the rotation of stars like Kochab and Mizar in the Big Dipper, they could mark an invisible line in the night sky that pointed straight to the celestial pole. But here's the catch. Earth's axis wobbles slightly over millennia, meaning the stars' positions shift. The pyramid's alignment matches the sky as it looked in 2500 BCE, not today. This suggests the builders didn't just glance upward. They recorded celestial patterns across generations, passing down knowledge we're only now beginning to decipher. Then there's the shadow method. Some researchers propose that during the autumn equinox, when day and night are of equal length, the Egyptians could have used a vertical rod called a gnomon. By tracking the shadow's path at sunrise and sunset, they might have bisected the angle to find true north. It's a simple yet elegant technique, one that requires no tools beyond patience and a keen eye for geometry. But the pyramid's precision goes beyond cardinal alignment. Its corners form near perfect right angles, and the base is leveled to within 2 centimeters, despite covering an area equivalent to 10 football fields. This implies the use of water-filled trenches as natural levels, or perhaps even advanced surveying tools lost to time. The most tantalizing question isn't just how they did it, but why. Alignment with the stars wasn't merely practical, it was spiritual. The pyramid's shafts point directly to Orion's belt and the North Star, linking the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife with celestial pathways. Every stone seems to whisper that this was more than a tomb. It was a gateway between Earth and the cosmos. Modern attempts to replicate the pyramid's alignment using ancient methods often fall short, hinting that we might still be missing a piece of the puzzle. Whether through forgotten technologies or sheer observational brilliance, the Great Pyramid stands as a testament to humanity's relentless pursuit of precision and the enduring allure of the unsolved. Picture a highway where merchants didn't just exchange silks and spices, but ideas that would reshape civilizations, where Buddhist monks walked alongside Zoroastrian traders, and mathematical concepts traveled as freely as bolts of fine fabric. This was the Silk Road, a sprawling web of routes stretching from China's imperial capitals to Rome's bustling markets. But to call it a simple trade route would be like calling the internet just a way to send messages. It was antiquity's greatest cultural exchange program, a living network where goods were the least of what changed hands. At its peak, the Silk Road was less a single path and more a constellation of trails, some crossing scorching deserts where caravans relied on oasis towns like Samarkand, others winding through mountain passes where yaks carried loads too heavy for camels. What made this system revolutionary wasn't just the distance it covered, but the diversity it connected. Chinese porcelain reached Persia, while Roman glassware appeared in Chinese tombs. But the real treasures were intangible. A monk from Gandhara carrying Buddhist scriptures to translate in Chang'an, or a Nestorian Christian setting up a church in 7th century Xi'an. Even religions weren't static. Buddhism absorbed Greek influences as it moved west, creating the serene Gandharan statues with their distinctly Hellenic features. Then there were the ideas that transformed societies. Papermaking, once a closely guarded Chinese secret, traveled westward after the Battle of Tollas in 751 CE, when Arab forces captured artisans who then taught their craft in Samarkand. Within centuries, paper mills in Baghdad were supplying scholars across the Islamic world, preserving everything from Greek philosophy to Indian astronomy. The decimal system, developed in India, rode the Silk Road's currents into the Middle East, where mathematicians like Al-Khwarizmi refined it before it reached Europe. Even culinary traditions blended noodles from China, likely inspired pasta in the Mediterranean, while Central Asian fermentation techniques gave us yogurt. But the Silk Road wasn't just about progress, it carried shadows too. The same caravans that bore silks and spices also unwittingly transported the bubonic plague. By the 14th century, the Black Death raced along these routes, decimating populations from Asia to Europe. It was a grim reminder of interconnection's double-edged nature. The same networks that spread enlightenment could also deliver devastation. Yet despite the risks, the Silk Road endured because the rewards outweighed the perils. Cities like Bukhara and Dunhuang thrived as cosmopolitan hubs where languages, faiths, and artistic styles mixed freely. Today, we see the Silk Road's legacy in everything from the genetic diversity of modern populations to the fusion cuisines we savor. Its greatest lesson: that innovation rarely happens in isolation. When cultures collide, whether through trade, migration, or even conflict, they spark transformations no one could predict. The next time you sip tea, a Chinese habit popularized globally by Silk Road exchanges, or admire a Persian carpet's intricate geometry woven with motifs borrowed from countless traditions, remember, you're touching fragments of a network that proved the world was always more connected than it seemed. Imagine a naval battle in the 7th century, where enemy ships approach Constantinople's walls only to be met with jets of liquid fire that clung to wood and water alike, igniting vessels into floating infernos. This was Greek fire, the Byzantine Empire's most closely guarded secret, a weapon so devastating it saved an empire on the brink. Unlike ordinary flames, this concoction couldn't be doused with water. Some accounts even claim it burned fiercer when wet. Its exact recipe vanished with the fall of Constantinople, but its legacy endures as one of history's most effective psychological weapons. The genius of Greek fire lay in its delivery as much as its chemistry. Byzantine engineers mounted pressurized siphons on their ships, spraying streams of fire through bronze tubes with a terrifying hiss. Historians describe the effect as apocalyptic. Sailors leaped into the sea only to find the flames following them, while the mere sight of the Byzantine fleet's fire-bearing Droman ships could scatter entire armadas. What made it so potent? Clues suggest a mix of crude oil or naphtha combined with pine resin for stickiness, and possibly quicklime, which reacts violently with water to generate heat. Some theories even point to secret additives like sulfur or saltpeter, precursors to gunpowder. but the true formula was so tightly controlled that only a handful of families in Constantinople knew it, passing fragments of the knowledge orally to prevent leaks. This secrecy reveals a deeper truth about ancient innovation. Technological superiority was often about controlling information as much as invention. The Byzantines treated Greek fire like a state secret, with emperors personally overseeing its production and use. Captured enemies who claimed to know its composition were allegedly executed, while the weapon was deployed sparingly, only in dire straits to preserve its mystique. It's a strategy modern corporations echo today, guarding intellectual property with patents and non-disclosure agreements. Yet Greek fire's impact transcends warfare. Its existence hints at a sophisticated understanding of chemistry and mechanics far ahead of its time. The pressurized siphons predate modern flamethrowers by over a millennium, while the precision of its deployment, often in naval sieges or against tightly packed fleets, shows strategic brilliance. Some scholars argue it delayed the fall of Constantinople by centuries, buying time for Byzantine art, literature, and legal traditions to flourish and later influence the Renaissance. The most haunting question isn't just how it worked, but why the knowledge disappeared. Was it a deliberate act of sabotage during the empire's collapse, or simply the result of overzealous secrecy? Either way, Greek fire stands as a paradox, a triumph of ancient engineering whose full capabilities we may never replicate. Its flickering ghost reminds us that innovation isn't just about creation, but preservation, and that some secrets once lost leave voids even modern science can't fill. Walking through the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro today, you'd notice something startling beneath your feet, not just crumbling bricks, but a network of carefully laid clay pipes running beneath the streets, connecting nearly every home in the city. This wasn't just plumbing, it was a 4,000-year-old revolution in public health. While contemporaries in Mesopotamia and Egypt were building towering ziggurats and pyramids, the Indus Valley civilization was quietly perfecting something far more foundational. A sewage system so advanced it wouldn't be rivaled until the height of the Roman Empire 2 millennia later. The scale of their achievement is staggering. Each house had its own bathing area with floors sloped toward a central drain, while toilets emptied into brick-lined cesspits that were regularly cleaned. These private systems fed into a citywide grid of covered drains running beneath the streets, complete with manholes for maintenance, features we'd consider modern until you realize they predate the wheel's arrival in parts of Europe. What's even more impressive is the thought behind the design. Drains were positioned to let water flow downhill naturally, and sedimentation pits filtered waste before it entered the main channels. This wasn't just functional engineering. It was evidence of a society that understood the link between cleanliness and collective well-being. But why did sanitation become such a priority for the Indus people when other great civilizations overlooked it? The answer might lie in their urban density. With populations estimated at 40,000, diseases could spread rapidly without proper waste management. Yet their solution went beyond practicality. It reflected a cultural value. Unlike the pyramids built to glorify pharaohs, Mohenjo-Daro's sewers served every citizen, from merchants to laborers. Even their public wells were carefully placed away from contamination, showing an awareness of germ theory thousands of years before it was formally articulated. The real tragedy is how much knowledge was lost. When the Indus Valley declined around 1900 BCE, their sanitation wisdom faded with them. Europe wouldn't see comparable systems until the Cloaca Maxima in Rome, and even that primarily served the elite. Modern archaeology keeps revealing new layers of sophistication, like the discovery that some drains had wooden screens to catch solid waste, or that certain neighborhoods had centralized garbage collection points. These weren't just amenities, they were the backbone of a civilization that thrived for 700 years with no evidence of major epidemics. Today, as 2 billion people still lack basic sanitation globally, Mohenjo-Daro's legacy feels achingly relevant. Their sewers weren't just about convenience, they were a declaration that public health is the bedrock of progress. The next time you turn on a tap or flush a toilet, remember, you're participating in a tradition of collective care that began not in Victorian London, but in the baked bricks of an ancient city that chose to build downward before reaching skyward. In a quiet corner of the Baghdad Museum sits an unassuming clay jar no taller than your hand, its neck sealed with asphalt, containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod. Discovered in 1936 near the ancient city of Ctesiphon, this object seems ordinary until you realize what happens when you fill it with vinegar or grape juice. It generates electricity. The so-called Baghdad Battery, dating back to the Parthian period around 200 BCE, produces roughly 1 volt of power, not enough to light a bulb, but sufficient to make historians question everything we thought we knew about ancient technological sophistication. The implications are tantalizing. If this was indeed a primitive battery, its purpose remains shrouded in mystery. Some researchers propose it was used for electroplating, coating objects with thin layers of gold or silver. Artifacts from Mesopotamia show gilding so fine, modern experts struggle to explain how it was achieved without chemical baths or electrical currents. Others suggest medical applications. Ancient Greek and Roman texts describe using electric fish to numb pain, so it's plausible these batteries delivered mild shocks for therapeutic purposes. Then there's the ceremonial theory. Could priests have used them to create mystical effects in temples, making statues weep or producing eerie glows with early LEDs made from jars in series? Skeptics argue the jars could simply have been storage containers, with the asphalt preventing leaks and the iron rod acting as a stopper. But replicas consistently generate voltage, and the design mirrors basic galvanic cell principles: an anode, cathode, and electrolyte. What's striking is that this knowledge seemingly vanished for centuries before being rediscovered by Alessandro Volta in the 1800s. How many other breakthroughs were lost in the gaps between civilizations? Perhaps the most fascinating aspect isn't whether the Baghdad Battery worked, but what its existence says about ancient innovation. Even if its creators didn't fully grasp the science, they stumbled upon a phenomenon that would redefine the modern world. It's a humbling reminder that progress isn't always linear. Sometimes sparks of genius flare up in unexpected places, only to fade until the world is ready to see their light again. The next time you charge your phone, spare a thought for that little clay jar, proof that curiosity has always been humanity's most powerful current. In the year 132 CE, while Rome built aqueducts and Greece refined its philosophy, a Chinese polymath named Zhang Heng unveiled something that defied the era's technological limits: a bronze vessel adorned with 8 sinuous dragons, each clutching a metal ball above the open mouths of 8 corresponding toads. At first glance, it might have seemed like an ornate ceremonial object, but this was the world's first seismoscope, a device so precise it could detect earthquakes hundreds of miles away, long before the ground began to tremble beneath observers' feet. The mechanism was as elegant as it was ingenious. Inside the vessel hung a delicate inverted pendulum, sensitive to the slightest vibrations. When seismic waves rippled through the earth, even those too faint for human perception, the pendulum would sway toward the quake's epicenter, triggering a series of levers. These would release a ball from the dragon's mouth facing the direction of the tremor, landing with a resonant clang into the waiting toad below. Imagine the awe of court officials witnessing this silent alarm. a bronze dragon spitting its payload before any messenger could arrive with news of distant devastation. What's remarkable isn't just the invention's accuracy. Historical accounts claim it detected a quake 400 kilometers away that no one in the capital had felt, but its fusion of art and science. The dragons and toads weren't mere decoration. They embodied a cultural understanding of earthquakes as cosmic disturbances, where celestial dragons stirred beneath the Earth's crust. Zhang Heng, an astronomer and poet as much as an engineer, bridged myth and mechanics, creating a tool that spoke to both the rational and the mystical. Modern attempts to replicate the seismoscope reveal even more sophistication. Some researchers suggest the device may have used a form of inertial mass principle, similar to today's seismometers, while others propose it leveraged harmonics to filter out false signals like nearby carts or footsteps. The exact mechanics remain debated, but the outcome is undeniable. This was predictive technology, offering vital time to prepare for disasters. Zhang Heng's legacy extends beyond his invention. In an age when many attributed quakes to divine wrath, his device reframed them as measurable phenomena. It's a testament to how ancient innovators didn't just build tools, they shifted paradigms. Today, as satellites track tectonic shifts in real time, we're still chasing the same goal Zhang Heng achieved with bronze and gravity, not just to survive nature's fury, but to anticipate it. The next time your phone buzzes with an earthquake alert, remember, the first warning came from a dragon's mouth 2,000 years ago. Carving words into stone shouldn't require memorizing thousands of intricate symbols, yet that's exactly what scribes faced in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. Then along came the Phoenicians, a seafaring people who looked at the cluttered landscape of cuneiform and hieroglyphs and asked a revolutionary question: what if every sound could be captured with just a handful of marks? Around 1500 BCE, along the cedar-lined coasts of modern-day Lebanon, they distilled writing to its purest essence 22 simple characters, each representing a consonant sound. This wasn't just an alphabet, it was a democratization of knowledge, turning literacy from an elite art into something a trader could scratch onto a clay tablet between voyages. The brilliance of the Phoenician system lay in its adaptability. Unlike pictorial scripts that demanded years of study, their letters were abstract and easy to replicate, straight lines and curves that could be etched quickly with a stylus or painted onto pottery. A merchant in Tyre could teach his child to write in weeks, not decades. But the real magic happened when this alphabet hit the road. Phoenician traders carried it across the Mediterranean like intellectual cargo, sparking writing revolutions wherever their ships docked. The Greeks added vowels, transforming it into a tool for recording poetry and philosophy. The Etruscans adapted it, passing it to the Romans, whose angular capitals still grace monuments and modern fonts today. Even Hebrew and Arabic scripts trace their lineage back to those original 22 shapes. What's often overlooked is how this invention reshaped human cognition. Pictographic writing like hieroglyphs required thinking in images, while syllabic systems like cuneiform tied thought to spoken syllables. The Phoenician alphabet did something radical. It broke language into its atomic parts, allowing minds to manipulate sounds directly. Suddenly, abstract ideas could be expressed with precision, and complex thoughts could travel across generations without distortion. It's no coincidence that the first major works of Western literature, like Homer's epics, appeared shortly after the Greeks adopted this system. Yet for all its influence, the Phoenician alphabet's origins remain humble. Scholars believe it evolved from earlier Proto-Sinaitic scripts, possibly invented by miners in the Sinai Desert who needed a quick way to label turquoise shipments. That's the paradox of this innovation. A tool born from commerce became the vehicle for humanity's highest intellectual achievements. From the ink-stained scrolls of Alexandria to the digital fonts on your screen, every word you read is a whisper from those ancient sailors who realized that the mightiest things, whether empires or ideas, often begin with a single, simple mark. Picture a farmer in ancient Syracuse, staring at his parched fields as the river flows just below too low to reach his crops with simple buckets. Then enters Archimedes, the Greek genius who'd already revolutionized mathematics, now turning his mind to a deceptively simple solution: a spiral wrapped around a cylinder, tilted at just the right angle. With a single turn of the handle, water climbed the rotating helix as if by magic, defying gravity to deliver life to thirsty soil. This was the Archimedes Screw, a 2,000-year-old invention so effective that modern farmers and engineers still rely on its principles today. What makes this device remarkable isn't just its longevity, but its elegant efficiency. Unlike complex pumps requiring valves or precise seals, the screw works with breathtaking simplicity. As the spiral turns, water gets trapped between its blades, lifted upward in a smooth, continuous flow. Ancient miners used it to drain flooded pits in Greece and Egypt, while Roman engineers adapted it for aqueducts and sewage systems. But here's the twist: it wasn't just about moving water. The screw's design minimized energy loss, allowing even a single person to lift heavy volumes with minimal effort. In an era without fossil fuels or electricity, this was sustainable technology at its finest. Modern versions power wastewater treatment plants and irrigation projects from the Netherlands to California, proving that Archimedes' insight transcends time. Some adaptations even reverse the function, using flowing water to turn the screw and generate electricity, a clean energy solution inspired by antiquity. But perhaps the most fascinating detail lies in how little the core design has changed. Whether crafted from bronze in a Sicilian workshop or fabricated from steel in a German factory, the helical pump still operates on the same timeless principle: work with nature's forces, not against them. Archimedes himself might have been amused to see his invention repurposed for fish farms or flood control, but he'd likely nod at the underlying truth it reveals. Great engineering isn't about complexity, it's about understanding fundamental relationships, like how water clings to a rotating surface or how angles affect efficiency. That's why this ancient screw still turns in our modern world, a silent testament to the power of curiosity married to observation. The next time you see water flowing uphill in a treatment plant or a vineyard's terraced irrigation, remember, you're witnessing the unbroken thread of innovation, one spiral at a time. From the arid plains of southern Peru, giant figures emerge: a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a spider with unnervingly precise legs, geometric spirals stretching longer than football fields. These are the Nazca Lines, an enigma carved into the earth between 500 BCE and 500 CE, so vast they only reveal their true forms when viewed from the sky. To stand among them is to walk across a canvas meant for gods, or perhaps something else entirely. The precision is staggering, lines running straight for miles despite rough terrain, curves so smooth they rival modern drafting tools, all created by removing the reddish surface pebbles to expose lighter soil beneath. How did a culture without flight or advanced mathematics achieve such scale and accuracy? The answers might lie in simple tools and ingenious techniques, but the purpose remains one of archaeology's most tantalizing puzzles. Some researchers argue these geoglyphs were celestial maps, aligning with solstices or constellations. The spider, for instance, mirrors the outline of the Orion constellation, while other lines track the sun's path during key agricultural cycles. Others see ritual pathways where processions honored deities tied to water, a precious resource in this desert. Then there's the extraterrestrial theory, fueled by their aerial visibility. and the mathematician Maria Rijke's lifelong obsession with proving they were landing markers for ancient astronauts. Yet the most compelling evidence points to something more grounded, a complex blend of astronomy, religion, and community identity. Recent studies suggest the lines led to ceremonial sites where offerings were made, their creation itself an act of devotion that unified scattered villages across the harsh landscape. What's often overlooked is the sheer audacity of their preservation. Unlike stone monuments, these shallow etchings have survived earthquakes, erosion, and even modern encroachment thanks to the region's unique climate, where rain falls less than an inch per year. The Nazca people didn't just leave behind art, they engineered a legacy against time. Today, drones and satellites reveal new glyphs still emerging from the dust, each discovery deepening the mystery. The lines challenge our assumptions about ancient communication, proving that some messages weren't meant for the people of their time, but for the future's unending curiosity. As we debate their meaning, one truth becomes clear. The Nazca didn't just draw on the earth, they wrote a question in the sand, waiting for us to find the answer. In the golden age of Ptolemaic Egypt, where the Nile met the Mediterranean, stood a beacon of human curiosity so luminous it drew thinkers from every corner of the ancient world. The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a building filled with scrolls, it was a living, breathing crucible of innovation, where mathematicians measured the Earth's circumference, physicians dissected cadavers to map the human body, and astronomers calculated the orbits of planets with startling accuracy. Imagine a place where Euclid penned the foundations of geometry, where Eratosthenes proved the Earth was round using nothing but shadows and sticks, and where Herophilus discovered the nervous system by studying the brain itself. This wasn't merely a library, it was the world's first interdisciplinary research institute, a melting pot of Greek, Egyptian, Persian, and Jewish scholarship that turned speculation into science. What set Alexandria apart was its relentless pursuit of collecting not just books, but knowledge in every form. Ships docking in the harbor were searched not for contraband, but for manuscripts, every scroll confiscated, copied by scribes, and returned with a replica, enriching the library's shelves. Estimates suggest it housed between 400,000 to 700,000 papyri at its peak, covering everything from Babylonian star charts to Indian medical texts. But the true genius lay in how these resources were used. Scholars didn't just preserve ideas, they debated, refined, and built upon them in lecture halls and gardens, creating a feedback loop of intellectual progress. The library's very layout encouraged collaboration, with colonnaded walkways connecting the museum, observatory, and dissection rooms, an ancient version of today's university campuses. Yet the library's fate carries a warning as potent as its achievements. The infamous fire, whether set by Julius Caesar's troops, Christian riots, or later Muslim conquests, wasn't just the loss of a building. It was the erasure of countless works by thinkers like Aristarchus, who proposed a heliocentric solar system 18 centuries before Copernicus, or Hipparchus, whose star catalogue might have revolutionized astronomy if preserved. The tragedy isn't merely in what burned, but in how much further humanity might have advanced had those scrolls survived. Imagine a world where the Antikythera Mechanism wasn't an anomaly, but part of a continuous tradition of mechanical innovation. Today, as digital archives face cyber attacks and physical libraries grapple with funding cuts, Alexandria's lesson resonates louder than ever. Knowledge isn't self-sustaining, it requires active stewardship, diverse voices, and sometimes the courage to defend it against the tides of ideology or apathy. The library's ghost lingers in every server farm preserving human culture, in every open access journal breaking down barriers to information, Its real legacy isn't the books it lost, but the imperative it left us to keep the flame of collective understanding alive, no matter how strong the winds of history blow. On storm-lashed Viking ships, where cloud and sea merged into a featureless grey horizon, a simple crystal may have meant the difference between reaching new lands and vanishing into the abyss. Norse sagas speak of a solarstein, a sunstone, that could reveal the sun's position even through dense fog or twilight. For centuries, this was dismissed as legend, until archaeologists uncovered a calcite crystal aboard a 16th-century English shipwreck, sparking a revelation. Viking navigators likely harnessed the polarizing properties of certain minerals to pierce the veil of overcast skies. Calcite, cordierite, and tourmaline crystals have a remarkable ability to filter sunlight. When held toward the sky and rotated, they split light waves into two beams of varying brightness. By turning the stone until these beams match in intensity, a navigator can pinpoint the sun's hidden position with uncanny accuracy, even when it's below the horizon during Arctic summers. Researchers testing this method in the Baltic Sea found it could determine the sun's location within 5 degrees, precise enough to maintain course along the Vikings' daring routes from Norway to Newfoundland. What's often overlooked is how this tool reflects a deeper truth about ancient innovation. Rigorous observation trumped formal theory. The Vikings didn't understand light polarization as a scientific principle, but they recognized its consistent patterns through trial and error. Similar to Polynesian navigators reading ocean swells or Bedouins tracking stars in shifting dunes, their expertise was born from generations of accumulated wisdom, not textbooks. Modern experiments show the sunstone works best when combined with other Viking techniques, like tracking wave direction or observing the behavior of birds, proof that their navigation was a symphony of environmental clues, not a single magical trick. The sunstone's legacy extends beyond the Viking Age. The same optical principles now guide aircraft instruments and submarine periscopes, proving that nature's subtle cues often outpace human invention. Yet there's poetry in the fact that these rugged explorers, often stereotyped as mere raiders, were also masters of optics and astronomy. Their sunstone wasn't just a tool, it was a testament to humanity's ability to decode the invisible, turning the mysteries of light into a pathfinder for the ages. High in the jungles of Mesoamerica, where howler monkeys swung through ceiba trees and jaguars prowled beneath the canopy, Mayan astronomers charted the cosmos with nothing but stone observatories and naked eyes. Their calendar wasn't just a way to mark days, it was a masterpiece of celestial mathematics, so precise it could predict solar eclipses within minutes and track Venus' 584-day cycle without a single lens or telescope. While medieval Europe still debated whether the Earth was flat, Mayan scribes were calculating time in units spanning millions of years, their long count system stretching far beyond the lifespans of kings or empires into the realm of cosmic cycles. At its heart lay 3 interlocking calendars, each serving a distinct purpose. The 260-day Tzolk'in, used for rituals and agriculture, meshed with the 365-day hob-like gears in a celestial clock, creating a 52-year calendar round that synchronized sacred and solar years. But the real marvel was the long count, a linear timeline counting days since the mythical creation date in August 3114 BCE by our Gregorian reckoning. This wasn't just counting, it was timekeeping on a galactic scale where periods of 144,000 days called biactons measured epochs longer than most civilizations lasted. Modern astronomers have confirmed the accuracy of these calculations. The Mayan prediction for Venus' position in the sky deviates by just 2 hours per 500 years. How did they achieve such precision without modern tools? Carvings at sites like Capon reveal their methods: carefully notched sticks to track lunar phases, observatory windows aligned with solstice sunrises, and codices filled with meticulous tables correcting for celestial quirks. The Dresden Codex alone contains eclipse warnings for 33 years in advance and a Venus table accurate for 500 years. But the calendar's genius wasn't just mathematical. It reflected a worldview where time wasn't linear but cyclical, where the rebirth of the sun each morning mirrored the larger patterns of creation and destruction. The most haunting aspect isn't the calendar's complexity, but how its sophistication clashes with outdated stereotypes of primitive cultures. When Spanish conquistadors burned Mayan texts as pagan heresy, they failed to recognize they were destroying astronomical data rivaling anything in Renaissance Europe. Today, as archaeologists decipher surviving fragments, we're left to wonder what other insights into the cosmos might have been lost. The Mayan calendar endures not just as a historical artifact, but as a challenge to our assumptions about progress. In a world obsessed with technological superiority, their silent stone observatories whisper a humbling truth: sometimes the most advanced tool is the human mind. Buried beneath the dusty plains of China's Shaanxi province lies an army unlike any other, row upon row of life-sized warriors frozen in time, their clay faces etched with expressions so distinct you'd swear they once breathed. Discovered in 1974 by farmers digging a well, the Terracotta Army isn't just a collection of statues. It's a revolution in ancient manufacturing, where mass production met artistic individuality on a scale never seen before. Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the unifier of China, didn't just want an anonymous legion guarding his tomb. He demanded 8,000 soldiers, each with unique facial features, hairstyles, even ear shapes, as if capturing the diversity of the very empire he forged. Walk through the excavated pits today, and the details astonish. A young recruit's brow furrows with determination, while a veteran's weathered face hints at campaigns fought in distant lands. Some wear intricate braids tied with ribbons, others sport topknots signaling rank. Every head was molded from one of 8 basic face shapes, then customized with hand-carved features like cheekbones, lips, and wrinkles. Even their armor tells stories, plates layered like fish scales for flexibility, square knots denoting officers, and delicate stitching patterns pressed into the clay. This wasn't assembly line work. It was an industrial operation employing 70,000 artisans who signed their creations like proud artists, leaving behind names like Zhang and Lai on the warriors' hidden surfaces. But the real marvel lies in the logistics. Each warrior was built in sections, legs pressed from molds, torsos coiled like pottery, heads and hands individually sculpted, then fired in kilns at nearly 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit without cracking. The paint, now mostly faded, was once vibrant: purple from cinnabar, black from charcoal, blues derived from rare azurite. Recent scans reveal something even more startling: traces of synthetic purple, a color so prized in antiquity that its creation hints at lost chemistry knowledge. And the weapons they carried: real bronze swords coated with chromium oxide, a rust-proofing technique Europe wouldn't rediscover until the 20th century. Qin's obsession with the afterlife didn't stop at soldiers. Excavations continue to reveal chariots with working suspension, acrobats frozen mid-performance, and even a terracotta orchestra complete with bamboo flutes, all meant to serve him eternally. Yet for all its grandeur, the tomb's greatest treasure remains unopened: the emperor's burial chamber, said to contain rivers of mercury simulating China's waterways, guarded by booby traps and protected by a nationwide vow of secrecy that lasted centuries. Modern soil tests confirm unnaturally high mercury levels, suggesting ancient historians weren't exaggerating. What makes the Terracotta Army timeless isn't just its craftsmanship, but what it reveals about power and mortality. Qin unified China's warring states, standardized writing, and built the first Great Wall, yet feared death so deeply he spent decades constructing a subterranean kingdom. His clay army, meant to intimidate spirits as his real army did mortals, instead became his unintended legacy. These silent sentinels, once hidden beneath farmers' fields, now remind us that even emperors can't control how history remembers them, only what they leave behind. Among the 7 wonders of the ancient world, none captivates the imagination quite like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, a lush oasis of tiered terraces said to have risen above the Mesopotamian desert like a mirage made real. Greek historians like Strabo and Diodorus Siculus painted vivid pictures of their grandeur, trees towering over colonnades, vines cascading down stone walls, and an intricate irrigation system that defied the arid climate. Yet for all their fame, no physical trace of the gardens has ever been found in Babylon's ruins, leaving archaeologists divided. Were they an elaborate myth, a case of mistaken identity, or perhaps a marvel so advanced that time erased all evidence? The genius attributed to the gardens lies in their alleged engineering. Ancient texts describe a complex network of screws, pumps, and cisterns lifting water from the Euphrates to the highest terraces, a feat that would have required technology rivaling Archimedes' screw centuries before its invention. Some scholars propose the gardens might have used a chain pump system, where buckets on a rotating loop carried water upward, while others suggest they were fed by an underground aqueduct network. The real breakthrough wasn't just moving water, but sustaining an entire ecosystem in a region where temperatures could scorch crops and evaporate reservoirs in days. If real, the gardens would have been a masterclass in microclimate control, with shaded walkways reducing evaporation and layered soil beds filtering nutrients to exotic plants. But here's the twist: the gardens might not have been in Babylon at all. Recent theories point to Nineveh, where Assyrian King Sennacherib boasted of a sprawling palace without rival, with botanical wonders watered by an 80-kilometer aqueduct. Cuneiform tablets describe bronze screws irrigating terraces, matching Greek accounts suspiciously well. Could centuries of storytelling have relocated the gardens to Babylon, a city already synonymous with grandeur? The confusion speaks to a deeper truth. These floating gardens, whether factual or embellished, became a symbol of humanity's longing to conquer nature's limits. What's undeniable is the legacy they inspired. From the stepped greenery of Mughal India's Shalimar Gardens to modern vertical farms in Singapore, the idea of elevating nature has persisted for millennia. The Hanging Gardens challenge us to ask, does it matter if they were real, when their vision of turning barren landscapes into living art continues to shape how we build our own paradises today? High in the Andes, where jagged peaks slice through clouds and deep valleys plunge into mist, the Inca Empire built a highway system that defied geography itself. Stretching 25,000 miles farther than the distance around the entire Earth, this network of stone-paved trails, suspension bridges, and staircases carved into cliffs connected an empire larger than ancient Rome, all without the use of wheels or draft animals. What's astonishing isn't just the scale, but the precision. Roads engineered to withstand landslides and earthquakes, with drainage systems that still function perfectly today, 5 centuries after their construction. The secret to their success lay in understanding their environment. Instead of fighting the mountains, the Inca worked with them. Steep slopes became cascading staircases, narrow ledges were widened with retaining walls, and raging rivers were crossed with woven grass bridges stronger than steel, some capable of supporting Spanish conquistadors in full armor. But the real genius was in the system's efficiency. Relay stations called tambos dotted the routes every 12 miles, a distance a runner could cover at high altitude in about an hour. Fresh messengers, or chasquis, waited at each post, ready to sprint the next leg with knotted cord messages called quippers. This courier network could relay news from Quito to Cuzco, 1,000 miles apart, in under a week, faster than a horse could manage on European roads. What's often overlooked is how this infrastructure sustained an empire without written language or currency. The roads weren't just for messages, they moved troops, llama caravans, and even entire communities during seasonal migrations. Storehouses along the routes held surplus food and blankets, allowing the Inca to redistribute resources during famines or disasters. It was a physical internet, an ancient web of information, goods, and power that bound together 80 provinces speaking dozens of languages. Modern engineers still marvel at the construction techniques. Roads were built with 2 layers, a gravel base for drainage and a top layer of fitted stones that shifted slightly during tremors, preventing cracks. In steep areas, zigzag paths reduced erosion, while tunnels through solid rock avoided vulnerable passes. Even the Spanish, who came to conquer, admitted in their chronicles that these roads surpassed anything in Europe. The tragedy is how much was lost. When colonial forces arrived, they dismantled sections to disrupt Inca resistance, and many bridges fell into disrepair. Yet enough remains to reveal a profound truth. Mobility isn't about technology, it's about vision. The Inca didn't need wheels because they had something more powerful, a society organized around movement, where every citizen understood their role in keeping the empire connected. Today, as hikers tread these ancient paths, they're walking not just on stones, but on the blueprint of a civilization that mastered the art of staying united across impossible distances. Sliding beads across rods might seem like child's play today, but 5,000 years ago, this simple action revolutionized mathematics. The abacus, whether in its Mesopotamian form as a dust-covered counting board or its elegant Chinese counterpart with wooden beads strung on bamboo, was the world's first portable calculator, capable of handling complex arithmetic at speeds that rivaled human thought. What's astonishing isn't just its longevity. Merchants in ancient Rome, scholars in medieval Persia, and shopkeepers in Edo period Japan all relied on variations of this tool, but how its design tapped into something fundamental about the human brain. Unlike modern calculators that obscure their workings behind silicon chips, the abacus made numbers tangible, turning abstract quantities into something you could see, touch, and manipulate with your fingers. The earliest versions appeared in Sumer around 2700 BCE as marked clay tablets, evolving over centuries into the familiar bead and frame design. Chinese Suanpan models added a stroke of genius, separating beads into upper and lower decks with a horizontal bar, allowing for base 16 calculations alongside base 10. A skilled user could multiply large numbers or calculate square roots faster than most people today could tap them into a digital device. The secret lay in muscle memory, practiced hands moving beads with such fluidity that experts could perform calculations without even looking, visualizing the abacus in their mind's eye. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Brain scans of abacus masters show heightened activity in the visual cortex during mental math, proving this ancient tool literally rewired how humans process numbers. But the abacus was more than a calculating aid, it was a universal language. From Incan Upana, boards using seeds instead of beads, to Russian skoti, still used in some markets today, every culture adapted the concept to fit their needs. Even when mechanical calculators emerged in the 17th century, the abacus held its ground. In 1946, a contest between an American electric calculator and a Japanese abacus operator ended in a near tie for all but the most complex problems. That's the real lesson of this invention. True efficiency doesn't always come from complexity. Sometimes the most enduring solutions are those that align with how we naturally think, transforming the flick of a bead into the click of understanding. Rising like stone lightning bolts against the desert sky, Egyptian obelisks defy logic with their sheer scale and perfection. Each one began as a single block of granite, some weighing over 400 tons, quarried with nothing but bronze chisels and endless patience. Workers at Aswan's quarries would first locate flawless stone, then painstakingly carve trenches around the future obelisk's outline, driving wooden wedges into the rock and soaking them with water until the expanding would split the granite along precise lines. The real challenge began once this colossal needle was freed, moving it hundreds of miles down the Nile without cracking its razor-straight edges. Ancient engineers devised a method as ingenious as it was laborious. They built massive barges from papyrus reeds and cedar planks, buoyant enough to carry the obelisk's weight yet flexible enough to navigate shifting river currents. When the floodwaters rose each year, teams would haul these floating platforms using a network of ropes and temporary canals dug right to the quarry's edge. Wall paintings in Hatshepsut's temple depict the process, hundreds of workers straining against ropes, while priests poured offerings to the Nile gods for safe passage. But the true test came at the destination, raising these monoliths upright without modern machinery. The secret lay in sand. Archaeologists believe Egyptians constructed gradual earthen ramps leading to the obelisk's final position, then carefully lowered the stone onto a pivot point using counterweights. As teams removed sand from beneath the base grain by grain, gravity did the rest, tilting the obelisk perfectly vertical. The precision still astonishes. Luxor's obelisks stand with deviations of less than 1 degree from true perpendicular. Their pyramidions originally sheathed in electrum to catch the first and last light of each day. What's often forgotten is that these weren't just monuments, they were cosmic antennas, aligned to cardinal points with uncanny accuracy. Their shadows functioned as sundials marking solstices and equinoxes, while inscriptions declared them petrified rays of the sun god Ra. The Romans were so awed that they hauled 13 obelisks to their capital, an operation requiring months at sea for each one. Today, as these ancient stones grace squares from Paris to New York, they remain silent witnesses to an era when human ambition and nature's forces collaborated on a scale we can scarcely replicate. The next time you stand beneath one, consider this. Every millimeter of its surface was shaped by hands that saw engineering not as a struggle against limits, but as a dialogue with the possible. Beneath the sun-baked ruins of Knossos and Phaistos, hidden under layers of volcanic ash and myth, lie the remnants of a plumbing system so advanced it wouldn't be matched until the height of the Roman Empire, 2,000 years later. The Minoans of Crete weren't just master artists and seafarers, they were hydraulic engineers who turned their palaces into marvels of comfort and sanitation. Picture this: terracotta pipes fitted with precision, gravity-fed aqueducts channeling fresh water from mountain springs, and even the world's earliest known flush toilets, where wooden seats perched over ceramic drains whisked waste away through stone sewers. This wasn't just innovation, it was a revolution in daily living, born in 1700 BCE, when most of Europe still relied on communal wells and open trenches. What set the Minoan system apart was its holistic design. Water didn't just flow randomly, it was carefully managed. Courtyards featured intricate networks of shallow channels that cooled the air during scorching summers, while underground conduits directed rainwater to cisterns for storage. The palace bathrooms, tiled in smooth stone, had separate drainage systems for clean water and waste, a distinction modern plumbing wouldn't standardize until the 19th century. Even more impressive, their pipes were designed with tapering shapes to increase water pressure, a principle we now call the Venturi effect, though it wouldn't be formally described for another 3 millennia. But the real genius lay in how these systems reflected Minoan values. Unlike contemporaries who reserved advanced infrastructure for temples or tombs, the Minoans prioritized communal well-being. Their palaces doubled as administrative hubs where clean water and sanitation were accessible to more than just elites. Archaeologists have found traces of herbal residues in drainage systems, suggesting they used natural disinfectants like mint and sage to combat odors and bacteria. This wasn't just engineering, it was an early public health initiative, a testament to a society that viewed hygiene as inseparable from civilization itself. The tragedy is how much knowledge vanished when Thera's volcanic eruption devastated Crete around 1600 BCE. Later Greeks, encountering these ruins, spun legends of the Minotaur's labyrinth, but the true marvel wasn't mythical beasts, it was the quiet brilliance underfoot. Today, as modern cities grapple with aging sewers and water shortages, the Minoans whisper a timeless lesson. True progress isn't just about grand monuments, but the unseen networks that make daily life not just possible but dignified. Their legacy flows on, not in gold or marble, but in something far more precious, the simple miracle of clean water at your fingertips. Beneath the scorching deserts of ancient Persia, where surface rivers vanished into thirsty sands, engineers devised a solution so elegant it turned barren landscapes into blooming oases, not by fighting nature, but by listening to it. The Kanat system, a network of gently sloping underground tunnels, didn't just deliver water, it whispered secrets of sustainability we're still struggling to relearn today. Picture this, workers digging vertical shafts deep into mountain foothills until they struck groundwater, then carving horizontal channels that let gravity guide the flow for miles without a single pump. These weren't crude ditches, but feats of precise engineering tunnels tall enough to walk through, lined with ceramic or stone to prevent collapse, and ventilated by the very shafts used during construction. The result, cool, clean water emerging in desert cities like Yazd, where summer temperatures could roast a man alive, yet gardens flourished and public drinking fountains never ran dry. What made Kanats revolutionary wasn't just their efficiency, but their ecological wisdom. Unlike modern wells that drain aquifers recklessly, Kanats tapped only what the mountains could replenish naturally. Their underground path minimized evaporation, a critical advantage in regions where the sun could steal 90% of surface water before it reached fields. Farmers along the route accessed the tunnels through shared shafts, ensuring equitable distribution without waste. Even the construction process was sustainable. The excavated soil piled around shaft openings formed windbreaks that reduced erosion, while the tunnels themselves became accidental wildlife corridors, sheltering everything from foxes to migratory birds. The system's legacy stretches far beyond ancient Persia. Spanish colonists brought Kanat technology called acequias to the American Southwest, where Pueblo communities adapted them into thriving agricultural systems. In China's Turpan Basin, a Kanat network 12 times the length of the Great Wall still waters vineyards in one of Earth's driest regions. Modern hydrologists studying these systems have made startling discoveries. Kanats maintain ideal water temperatures for crop growth, naturally filter out impurities, and even recharge surrounding aquifers by allowing controlled seepage. It's a stark contrast to today's concrete canals and energy-guzzling desalination plants. Perhaps the most poignant lesson lies in the Kanat's social dimension. Maintaining these tunnels required cooperation across generations. Villages formed water councils to oversee repairs, and knowledge passed from father to son like sacred texts. When invaders like Alexander the Great encountered qanats, they didn't destroy them. They hired Persian engineers to build more. That's the true marvel of this technology. It turned water from a source of conflict into a covenant between people and place. As California farmers now experiment with qanat-inspired systems to combat drought, we're reminded that the ancients didn't just solve problems, they designed harmony into the very fabric of survival. Emerging from the jungles of southern Mexico like silent sentinels, the Olmec colossal heads stand as one of ancient America's most arresting mysteries. Carved from single blocks of volcanic basalt, some weighing 20 tons or more, these towering visages, each standing taller than a professional basketball player, depict faces with broad noses, thick lips, and helmet-like headgear. But it's not just their scale that captivates, it's the sheer logistical audacity behind them. The basalt came from the Tuxtla Mountains, quarried without metal tools, then transported over 50 miles through swamps and rivers to Olmec ceremonial centers like La Venta and San Lorenzo. How archaeologists suspect a combination of rafts, rollers, and sheer human muscle, possibly thousands of laborers hauling these stones with ropes and leverage, a feat that would have required not just strength, but extraordinary coordination and social organization. What's equally fascinating is what these heads reveal about Olmec society. The intricate carvings, ear spools, jaguar motifs, and unique headdresses suggest these weren't generic idols, but portraits of specific individuals. Some theorize they represent rulers, immortalized in stone to project their authority. Others see deities or revered ball players from a civilization that may have invented the Mesoamerican ball game. The variation in facial features hints at a diverse elite, possibly even different ethnicities, fueling debates about the Olmec's reach. Traces of pigments indicate they were once vibrantly painted, transforming these stoic faces into lifelike monuments that may have presided over ceremonies or processions. The real intrigue lies in the unanswered questions. Why were some heads deliberately buried in precise arrangements, as if ritually killed? How did a society without wheels or pack animals master such complex geology and transport? And why, despite their sophistication, did the Olmecs leave no written records to explain themselves? Each discovery peels back a layer, like the recent find of a potential colossal throne near a head at San Lorenzo, suggesting these rulers literally sat on their legacy. Today, these heads endure not just as art, but as a challenge to our assumptions about primitive cultures. They whisper of a civilization that mapped trade routes for jade and obsidian across continents, engineered landscapes to control flooding, and perhaps even influenced the Maya and Aztecs who followed. The next time you see one of those enigmatic faces, whether in person or in photos, remember, you're not looking at a crude relic. You're meeting the gaze of a people who carved their identity into stone, daring us to decode their story across the millennia. Deep in the heart of China's Han Dynasty, where scholars sought cosmic harmony between heaven and earth, a peculiar tool began its journey from mystical ritual to world-changing innovation: the lodestone spoon. Crafted from naturally magnetic ore and balanced delicately on a polished bronze plate, this early compass wasn't designed for sailors or merchants. Its purpose: divination. Ancient mysticians believed the spoon's alignment with celestial forces could reveal auspicious directions for building homes, planting crops, or even burying the dead. But somewhere between the 2nd and 1st century BCE, someone noticed something extraordinary. This divination tool didn't just point to cosmic energy. It consistently aligned itself along a north-south axis, mirroring the unseen pull of the Earth itself. The leap from sacred object to navigational breakthrough was anything but straightforward. Early mariners initially resisted the compass, trusting centuries-old techniques like reading star patterns, bird migrations, or the color of sea foam. But as trade routes stretched farther from shore, where clouds obscured the stars and storms disoriented even seasoned sailors, the compass proved indispensable. By the Song dynasty, artisans had refined the design, replacing the spoon with a magnetized needle floating in water or suspended from silk, creating a portable guide that worked in any weather. Suddenly, ships could venture beyond sight of land with unprecedented confidence, turning the treacherous waters of the South China Sea into bustling maritime highways. What's often overlooked is how this humble tool reshaped global power dynamics. Chinese treasure fleets under Admiral Zheng, he used compasses to navigate as far as East Africa in the 15th century, decades before European explorers would brave open oceans. Arab traders adopted the technology through Silk Road exchanges, calling it the floating fish, while Venetian merchants later carried it to Mediterranean shipyards. The compass didn't just guide ships, it steered the course of empires, enabling Portugal's voyages around Africa, Columbus's accidental encounter with the Americas, and the Dutch domination of the spice trade. Yet the real marvel lies in the compass's quiet subversion of human perception. For millennia, navigation relied on visible cues: the sun's arc, the pole star's fixed position. The compass introduced something radical: trust in invisible forces. Sailors learned to follow a needle's whisper rather than their own instincts, a conceptual shift that paved the way for later scientific revolutions. Today, as GPS satellites orbit overhead, we've come full circle, navigating by unseen energies once more. The compass's legacy isn't just in the routes it mapped, but in teaching humanity to navigate the unknown by embracing forces beyond the naked eye. In the bustling markets of medieval Damascus, a swordsmith might have demonstrated his craft by draping a silk scarf over a newly forged blade, then slicing it cleanly in half with a single stroke. This wasn't just showmanship, it was proof of a metal so extraordinary that legends claimed it could split hairs or cleave through armor without losing its edge. Damascus Steel, with its distinctive watery patterns and near-mythical properties, wasn't just a weapon, it was a metallurgical masterpiece. Its secrets so closely guarded that when the last smiths who knew its techniques died in the 18th century, the knowledge vanished with them. What set this steel apart was a combination of artistry and science that modern researchers are still struggling to fully unravel. The starting material wasn't ordinary iron ore, but wootz steel, a high-carbon alloy imported from India, forged from raw iron and rare plant matter packed into clay crucibles. When smelted at precise temperatures, this process created ingots laced with microscopic structures called carbon nanotubes, a phenomenon only confirmed by 21st-century electron microscopes. Blacksmiths would then heat, fold, and hammer these ingots dozens of times, not just to strengthen the metal, but to align its crystalline structure in a way that produced both flexibility and a razor-sharp edge. The mesmerizing patterns weren't mere decoration, they were the visible signature of this intricate internal architecture, like a fingerprint of the forging process itself. The real mystery isn't just how Damascus steel was made, but why its modern recreations often fall short. Contemporary metallurgists can replicate the surface patterns, but the blades lack the legendary durability and self-sharpening qualities described in historical accounts. Some theories suggest the original wootz ingots contained trace impurities, perhaps vanadium or chromium from specific mines, that gave the steel unique properties. Others propose that the quenching process involved exotic materials like pomegranate extract or urine, creating chemical reactions we don't fully understand. Even the cooling rate seems to have been critical. Manuscripts describe blades being cooled in the bodies of enslaved warriors, though whether this was literal or metaphorical remains debated. What's often overlooked is how this lost technology reflects a deeper truth about ancient innovation. Mastery wasn't just about technique, but about intimate knowledge of unpredictable natural materials. A Damascus smith didn't just follow a recipe, he interpreted the metal's behavior through years of tactile experience, adjusting his strikes based on the sound of the hammer and the color of the glow. Modern attempts to reverse engineer the steel using controlled lab conditions might miss this intuitive dance between craftsman and material. The legacy of Damascus Steel endures not just in museums but in unexpected places. Surgeons covet scalpels made from modern approximations for their clean cuts, while materials scientists study its nanostructures for breakthroughs in everything from aerospace alloys to bulletproof vests. Yet the original remains elusive, a reminder that some ancient wisdom can't be fully captured by formulas or scans. Like a shadow of the smith's hammer, it lingers just beyond our grasp, inviting us to keep searching for the perfect blend of art and science that once turned metal into magic. From the humble nail holding our homes together to the celestial calculations of the Antikythera Mechanism, these 29 marvels prove one undeniable truth: human ingenuity has always burned brightly, no matter the era. Each breakthrough we've explored, whether carved in stone or forged in fire, wasn't just a product of its time but a bridge to ours. The ancient world wasn't a prelude to progress. It was a hotbed of brilliance where thinkers and tinkerers defied limitations with nothing but observation, creativity, and relentless curiosity. What's striking isn't just the diversity of these inventions, but the common threads weaving them together. Necessity played its part, yes, whether it was the Inca paving highways across mountains or the Minoans engineering flush toilets, but so did something deeper: the refusal to accept the world as it was. The compass didn't emerge because sailors were content with coastal waters. It was born from a daring question: what if we could navigate the unseen? Paper wasn't just a convenience for scribes, it was a rebellion against the idea that knowledge should be heavy, rare, or locked away. These weren't just tools, they were revolutions disguised in clay, bronze, and stone. And here's the most humbling realization: many of these innovations were lost, only to be rediscovered centuries later. The Roman concrete that self-heals, the Damascus steel that modern labs can't perfectly replicate, the precise celestial alignments of the Great Pyramid, they whisper a cautionary tale. Progress isn't inevitable, it's fragile, dependent on the preservation and sharing of ideas. The Library of Alexandria's ashes remind us how easily brilliance can fade, while the Silk Road's exchanges show how collaboration ignites transformation. So as we tap on smartphones and stream data across continents, let's not mistake our era's gadgets for superior genius. The real legacy of these ancient marvels isn't in their mechanics, but in their mindset. They challenge us to ask better questions, to see problems as puzzles, and to remember that the next world-changing idea might lie in something as simple as a bead on an abacus or a spiral in a screw. Now it's your turn. Which of these inventions reshaped how you see the past? Was it the quiet revolution of the Kanat or the cosmic ambition of the Mayan calendar? Drop your thoughts below and let's keep the conversation alive. If this journey through time sparked your curiosity, hit that subscribe button, because history isn't a static record. It's an ongoing dialogue between then and now, and you're part of it. After all, the greatest invention might just be the one that inspires you to look at the ordinary and see the extraordinary.